When Darren Franklin moved into the little brick house on Holloway Street, he thought he was escaping his past. A failed engagement, a breakdown, and a dead-end job left him with little more than 2 duffel bags, a worn-out laptop, and anxiety that never quite let go. The house was older than he'd expected, drafty, creaky, and reeking of mothballs, but the price was unbeatable. The realtor said it was undervalued due to the view. Darren didn't understand what she meant, until he saw it. Directly across the street, an enormous, decaying building squatted like a rotting tooth on the otherwise tidy block. Ivy climbed its crumbling brick facade. Its blackened windows stared back like soulless eyes. Over the arched door hung a rusted sign, Moore and Sons, Funeral Services, established in 1922. The place had been closed for decades, the realtor explained, after a fire in the embalming wing. No fatalities, supposedly, but the place had been shuttered ever since. Darren shrugged it off. He wasn't superstitious, just tired. Week 1. Odd things begin. By Darren's second night, he began waking up at 3:11 a.m. on the dot. No noise, no nightmares. Just sudden, jarring awakenings. That's when he noticed the porch light. Across the street, the funeral home, boarded, sealed, and supposedly disconnected from the grid, was lit. Softly, dimly, but unmistakably on. He stared for long minutes. Then the flickering upstairs began. Orange, low light pulsing like candle flames behind one upper window. He told himself it was probably squatters. Kids. But even as he thought it, dread sank its claws into his gut. Week 2. The music. On the 8th night, Darren was in bed when the music started. A wheezing organ melody, haunting and off-key. The tune came faintly through the walls of his house, as if someone was playing just across the street with the windows open. He stared at his ceiling, frozen. The music stopped after 5 minutes, but the silence that followed felt heavier than the song itself. Week 3. The camera sleep-deprived and growing paranoid, Darren bought a motion-sensitive camera and set it up in his window. He aimed it squarely at the funeral home and hit record. The next morning, the footage showed something. At 3:11 a.m., the porch light blinked on. At 3:13 a.m., a black hearse, dust-covered, slow-moving, pulled into the driveway. The license plate read simply M and R666. 2 figures in old-fashioned mortician uniforms stepped out. Their movements were stiff, unnatural. They walked to the rear of the hearse and pulled out a long black coffin. Slowly, they turned, not toward the funeral home, but toward Darren's house. They began to cross the street. As they stepped off the curb, the video abruptly turned to static. Week 4. The visits begin. Now, Darren couldn't sleep at all. He kept a knife on his nightstand. Salt by the windows. Crucifixes. Even though he wasn't religious. At 3:13 a.m. every night, the knocking began. 3 slow, heavy knocks. Sometimes at the front door. Sometimes at the back. Once, horrifyingly, right beneath the floorboards. He stopped opening doors. Stopped leaving the house. But the footsteps kept coming. They echoed inside the walls. The taps became scratches. Then whispers. Your time is scheduled. We've made arrangements. The embalming room is ready. Darren begins to break. One morning, he woke to find a funeral card tucked beneath his pillow. It had his full name, his birth date, and a blank space next to date of death. The paper reeked of formaldehyde. That day he tried to leave town, but his car wouldn't start. Every tow truck he called never showed. His phone began glitching at exactly 3 p.m. every day, showing the same text over and over. Your appointment approaches. Prepare yourself. The neighbor. In desperation, Darren knocked on the door of the elderly man living next door, Mr. Addison, who had lived on Holloway Street since the 60s. The man looked through the peephole for a long time before opening the door. Just a crack. "You shouldn't have moved into that house," he said flatly. "The funeral home doesn't forget. Once it sees you, it claims you." Mr. Addison said no one had successfully lived in Darren's house for longer than a month since the fire across the street. The Moore brothers, they never truly left. They were keepers of the dead, Darren. But one night, they buried someone they shouldn't have. Something that didn't want to stay buried. Now they wait, watching, gathering souls, one house at a time. The final night. On his final night, Darren boarded his doors and windows, pushed furniture in front of every entrance, turned every light on, lit candles, played loud music to drown out the organ tones he knew were coming. But at 3:13 a.m., everything shut off, all at once. Power, battery, backup lights, silence. Then, from the darkness came the sound of a latch turning, a door slowly creaking open. Footsteps. Wet. Slow. Darren screamed, backing into a corner. A tall figure stepped into the glow of a dying candle. Its skin stretched too tight over its face, lips sewn shut, black eyes staring into him. The thing placed a gloved hand on Darren's shoulder and said nothing. The next morning, Darren was gone. The house was silent. No blood, no mess, just a faint scent of roses and rot. The only thing left behind was a new business card on the welcome mat. Moore and Sons. Funeral services. Now proudly serving both sides of the street. Epilogue. The funeral home reopened a month later. Fresh paint, clean windows, a help wanted sign in the window. People said they saw a man working late at night behind the curtain. Tall, pale, eyes sunken. When asked if they were hiring, the woman at the desk would smile. "We already have a new mortician. He just moved in. If you made it this far, you're braver than Darren." Let me know in the comments. Would you ever live across from an abandoned funeral home? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell for more dark, disturbing stories every week. From spooky chilling tales, sleep tight. But if you hear knocking at 3:13 a.m., don't answer the door.